3 of these events, you're going to be moving over distance. You got to have fast feet, so to speak. So, the World's Strongest Man, these athletes have to be able to move.
He did exactly what he set out to do.
Haack is not in your conversation for powerlifting GOAT. I think you're doing something wrong. For me, the most interesting thing wasn't even the gym, it was the thought process behind the gym. Does that make sense? It's like a look into the mind.
You see the blueprint, like the blueprint in his mind coming to life. Very cool.
Hey folks, welcome to another lovely episode. We're a little presumptuous there, but lovely episode of Strength Weekly. Let's get down to our run of show. First and foremost, the 2024 World's Strongest Man events are revealed. BarBend will be bringing you unprecedented, live, in-person, on-the-ground coverage. Next up, we didn't even get to talk about this last week because there was too much going on in the world of powerlifting, but John Haack misses his weight cut, goes up a weight category, and still comes away with an all-time world record. Jujimufu, the super famous anabolic acrobat, self-styled, gives a tour of his $500,000 home gym. We take you inside. And finally, Hunter Henderson, who purposely alternates between bodybuilding and powerlifting, sets her own all-time world record. We talk about that accomplishment and what she's focused on as a bodybuilding or powerlifting for the coming months. Phil, is it safe to say that you are one of the top strongman journalists in the world right now? Is that safe to say? Because I'm going to say it.
Yeah, I would argue that I would take any other strongman journalist anytime, anywhere as the number one, if not the top contender at the very least. I mean, my accuracy in strongman competition predictions is unparalleled, and I'm sure the people in the comments will fully agree with that.
Well, here we go. We're going full heel on Strength Weekly this week. Well, let's talk about World's Strongest Man. We'll dive right into it. 2024 World's Strongest Man. Okay, this year's World's Strongest Man contest features 12 events across 4 days of action. It takes place in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina between May 1st and 5th. That's coming right up. That's just a couple weeks away. Oh my goodness. In 2024, Mitchell Hooper, the Canadian Moose, will attempt to defend his crown, but some former World's Strongest Man champions will be nipping at his heels, including two-time champ Tom Stoltman and 2020 champ Alexei Novikov. It is worth noting that 2019 champ Martins Licis will not be competing in this year's event and has withdrawn, so it leaves the field a little more wide open as far as former champs than it might otherwise. Phil, we now know the events across the competition for both qualifying stages and finals for this year's World's Strongest Man. If you wouldn't mind, let's talk about the qualifying stages. These are important.
Yeah, for anybody who is joining us for the first time, who's unaware of how World's Strongest Man progression through the full contest goes, it's a 5-day contest. Technically, it's 4 days because they have a rest day in between. So the first 2 days of competition, you have 30 athletes that are split across 6 groups in what is called the qualifying stage. The winner of each group advances to the finals, which competes on the last 2 days of competition after that rest day. And then the second and third place finishers in each group go head-to-head in the stone off, which is one of the events that we'll get to. And that is essentially they just keep lifting an Atlas stone back and forth until one athlete can't do it anymore. Now, the benefit of getting second place in your group is you don't have what I like to just call colloquially as the initiative, which is you don't have to lift first in the stone off. So it's whoever misses a lift first, not whoever lifts more stones in the stone off. So if David and I are going head to head and he has the initiative, I have to lift first. If he lifts 5 stones and I lift 5 stones and I try and go for my 6th stone and miss, he does not have to lift again. He advances. That's the advantage of reward for earning second place in the qualifying stage. So that's a quick wrap of that. So in the qualifying stage, we have the Webster stones, which you might know as the nickel stones or the Denny stones. It's similar to that. It's a walking stone competition. You have the deadlift ladder, which is a series of progressively heavier deadlifts that you do for time. You have the sandbag steeplechase. Think of it as a medley of sorts. The Globe Viking press. That's an overhead press, usually for reps. And then you have a car walk, similar to a yoke walk. We've seen that in recent World's Strongest Man competitions before. Evan Singleton has that. Left competition came back, had that roaring win in the car walk back in Sacramento a couple years back. And then, of course, we have the stone off, as we just mentioned. So that's the qualifying stage.
Now, Phil, as far as the qualifying stage goes, any of these events stand out to you as maybe surprises compared to what we've seen over the last few years of competition?
So I wouldn't say any of them are surprises. Usually you see in qualifying stages some amount of the fundamental movements that are here. Like we have an overhead press. We have a deadlift, which is a hip hinge. We have the Webster stones, which is a carry of sorts. We see a medley. So none of them are surprising. What I am hoping to see, though, is in Myrtle Beach, it gets really hot. And these competitions usually take place very early in the morning, but depending on the order of when your group competes, you might be competing at a point in the day where it is hotter. So if you're at high noon and you're competing in the deadlift ladder, for example, athletes lost points last year because the platform had gotten so hot that they were lifting in socks and they had to hop off of the platform because they were burning their feet, not because they were unable to necessarily lift the weights or lift the weights fast enough to score points. So notably, I remember I was there live. I remember Kordiaka had to hop off the platform because it was just too hot to stand on. So I'm hoping that that Giants Live is going to take precautions for the athletes that have to compete in the warmer weather if they're running in a later qualifying group.
We're getting a physics lesson and insider info on the game of strongman. I do want to point out before we move on to the finals events, 3 of these events, full half of the events, you're going to be moving over distance. You got to have fast feet, so to speak. So you're going to be moving weight in various capacities, but again, over distance. And I think that's just indicative of the fact that at World's Strongest Man, these athletes have to be able to move. Phil, let's move on to the finals events. If athletes make it through the qualifying stage and they make the finals, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so the way that we lay out on the qualifying stage, if you just map out the math, there's a winner from each group, and then there's a second place winner who goes over in the stone. So 10 athletes advance to the finals. So you always have 10 athletes who enter the final stage of the competition, where they will run into 6 more events, 3 on each day, and they go as follows: the Knack Giants Medley, the Max Axle Press, the Keg Toss, the Reigns Total Body Fuel Conan's Wheel, the BF Goodrich Tires HD Terrain Deadlift, and of course, the Atlas Stone. So as you can see, as always, the World's Strongest Man has a lot of heavy sponsors, and they are going to be heavily incorporated into the events.
Yeah, and we've seen that in the past. Knack, folks had to move objects, containers, heavy metal things, which Knack makes, right? BF Goodrich makes tires. There's going to be a tire deadlift. All that sort of makes sense. Rain Total Body Fuel makes a performance drink, a performance beverage. So they're probably not going to be, they're going to be branded on the Conan's wheel somehow, but it's probably not going to incorporate the product directly, and maybe unless it's like a pallet of it somehow attached to the Conan's wheel. Really interesting. I like seeing the Conan's wheel attached here. It's a grueling event, Conan's wheel. It's really, who can dig deepest. As we see with a lot of events, going last is your friend here, because you're kind of able to see how long competitors have gone, and you're going to be able to see like what you need to clear, which like march you need to clear, and that is mentally a huge advantage, especially for competitors who are really focused on coming out early and getting that mental advantage, like reigning champion Mitchell Hooper. Phil, of these events, which do you have any surprised you?
I wouldn't say that any event, again, these events I feel like are fairly classic events that you'll see at most elite strongman competitions. The surprising thing is that there's no log, but there still is, as we were talking about the functional movements that we usually see in strongman, we do see an overhead event, which is the axle press. So in that regard, not every athlete is as strong in the log as they will be in an axle press. So for the guys that are exceptional in log, we're looking at our Bobby Thompsons, we're looking at our Luke Stoltmans, like whether or not they're as strong as they are on the log as the axle press. If I'm one of those guys, I'm disappointed to see that a log lift is not in the lineup in either the qualifying or the final.
Amazing. Phil, I do want to say that next week on Strength Weekly, we're going to be bringing you some predictions, some actual predictions, but just a quick preview, just a very quick preview. Who do you think has the best chance of taking home this year's World's Strongest Man title?
I think if anybody's not putting their money back on Mitchell Hooper, they're probably taking a riskier bet than they need to. Now, that's just going off of, he has only historically done exceptionally well since he found his way in strongman. He has hit something like 15 podiums in a row or something like that, on top of just winning the Arnold Classic for the second time. I think that Tom Stoltman, 2-time reigning champ before he lost the title to Hooper, I think that he will come in aiming to get his crown back. So I expect those two guys to be on the podium at the very least. Now, the third place or whoever else is on the podium with them, regardless of that order, I think is where it gets a lot more interesting. I'm putting my money on those two guys to at least get to the podium, and I would put them in 1-2 at this point. Who's joining them, I think, is really where the toss-up is, because as we saw last week, Martins Lisis and Mateusz Kieliszkowski both withdrew, and they would have been easily in the conversation of who else is getting onto the podium. So at the time of this recording, we don't actually know the full lineup. There are still 6. Originally, there were 4 athletes that we were expecting to still join the roster. Martins and Mateus are now out, so there's 2 more slots that are open. So we're going to see who those slots go to. There's a lot of variables going into this one. That's why I think you should tune in. You should tune in. I have covered it for the last several years, and I'm very excited for this World's Strongest Man.
Full preview coming next week. We're going to actually move on to the world of powerlifting. John Haack, who was supposed to compete at 90 kilograms at the WRPF Ghost Clash 3, and really wanted to hit a 2,400 pound powerlifting total, which would be an all-time world record. His weight cut did not go quite according to plan, so he actually ended up competing at 100 kilograms instead of 90 kilograms body weight. Phil, how did he do?
How did he do? He did exactly what he set out to do. He said he was going to hit a 2,400 kilogram total. That's what he did. He just was like, you know what? I'll just hit the total that I expected to hit, even if I have to compete in a weight class above when I've only a couple kilos into it. It's like if he competed at 100 kilos and planned it, he had 8 kilos or whatever it was to give. Still hit it.
It's worth noting. It's still an all-time world record in the 100 kilogram bodyweight category, right? So John Haack moves up a bodyweight category, still sets the all-time world record because the all-time world record he was aiming for in that bodyweight category was so good it would be the all-time world record in the bodyweight category above. John Haack. Okay, let's just talk about what he did on the day. All right, 3 for 3 on the squat, ended with a 365 kilogram squat. 2 for 3 on the bench, ended with a 252.5 kilogram bench press. 3 for 3 on the deadlift, ending at 426 kilograms. That gives him 1,043.5 kilograms for right around 2,400 pounds, an all-time world record. Phil, I'm just going to come out and say it. This is going to be a shorter section because, like, what can you say? We just want to see John Haack lift. He's really in a class of his own, not only in the 90 kilo bodyweight category, but in the 100 kilo bodyweight category when it comes to raw lifting. He might be the powerlifting GOAT. I think that when you talk, Ed Cohen obviously is kind of referred to as the GOAT and has been for several decades now. You look at Jen Thompson, right? People talk about her as the GOAT. Look, this is debatable, right? This is fun. GOAT is a term that's fun because we get to debate it because like there is a level of subjectivity there. Haack is certainly in the conversation, shows no signs of slowing down, is only getting stronger. Obviously, there are different federations, right? There are different drug testing policies for different federations in powerlifting. There are different rules, wraps versus sleeves, raw and equip. It's tough to say. But if Haack is not in your conversation for powerlifting GOAT, I think you're doing something wrong. End rant.
I would agree. I think you're 100% doing something wrong if he's at least not in the conversation for GOAT. I mean, also a representative of a quality in what would be the greatest of all time is adjusting to things not necessarily going according to plan, like missing your weight cut, but then competing anyway and then still hitting the total that you set, like not letting that affect you, still competing at the level that you expected of yourself and then scoring an all-time world record anyway. Like if that's not part of the conversation of how the best in the world can also adjust their mind state to then compete at the highest level in a weight class above than what they were expecting. Now we've seen Haack compete at this weight class before, but it's not what he was shooting for. But I think that like if Haack's not at least at the very minimum in the conversation seriously, then that's not a serious conversation.
Well said. That's the clip right there, Phil. Okay, let's talk about someone who's a serious athlete but doesn't take himself too seriously. How about that for a segue, y'all? Jujimufu, the anabolic acrobat who went viral years ago, right around the time BarBend was getting started, maybe a little bit before, for doing crazy things with weights, including the splits on chairs with an overhead squat position in his kitchen. He used to train out of a squat rack in his kitchen, right? He was the acrobatic bodybuilder, the anabolic acrobat. And now, well, he's in this full time. I believe he worked for a biotech company for a while, moved over to the content production space full time 4 or 5 years ago. I might be right or wrong, and has built himself quite the home gym, valued at around $500,000, $500,000 with all the equipment inside. And Coop from Garage Gym Reviews, which is a sister site and sister brand of BarBend, we have the same parent company, joined Jujimufu and toured what I would argue, or at least what I've seen on video, is one of the nicest home gyms in existence. And I would bet it's certainly up there. Phil, what are some of the takeaways that you got from this fantastic tour? And we're going to link to that article that goes into that, where you can watch the full video, obviously in the description, the link below. So definitely check that out. Hopefully it's a video you watch after this video. Phil, what are some of your takeaways from this tour of Jujimufu's home gym?
I had 2 specific takeaways that I was like, those are that is also incredibly interesting on top of the fact that this is an incredibly expensive and tricked out, well-designed gym. The first one is it's not a bait and switch, people, okay? It's a home gym. It's still a home gym. Now, the thing that stuck out to me, though, is the plans to potentially make it public. Now, that is kind of cool because this is a very sweet gym. I would want to train at this gym. Could I afford a membership? To be determined. But that is very cool. So right now it's a home gym, but he does plan on potentially making it public in the future. He was saying that that's in the works. The other thing that I also really appreciated here was, why would anybody want a gym that expensive? Like, who needs a gym that expensive? Even if you're the anabolic acrobat, why do you need 500K in a gym? Won't any decent machine for what you're trying to do work? Well, he was saying that if he ever sells it, he wants to have resale value. And that made me chuckle because, David, I don't know about you. If I was ever in a position to invest $500,000 into my own personal gym, I think that's just mine forever. I don't know if I would ever consider, if I have that kind of coin, I don't think I'm thinking, whom will I give this to in the future? You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point, Phil, but I think he might be playing 4D chess here, right?
Mm.
I think he's thinking resale value because he's thinking, well, how do I? It's kind of like upgrading car. Like, I'm not a car guy, right? But you know how some people have like a car and they upgrade to a sports car as like a lower level sports car and then a higher level sports car, and you keep going up the chain, right? You trade it
Oh,
in
interesting.
toward you trade it in toward something bigger and better. I think what he's thinking here is, yeah, I have this sweet home gym. It could be mine forever, or if it retains enough of its value, I can use that toward selling that equipment, selling the gym outright. I can use that toward an even bigger and better facility.
What's the line? You know what's cool? $1 million gym. You know what's even cooler? $1 billion gym. What's that? You know what I'm saying? What's that
Uh,
tagline?
it's from the Social Network. Like,
Yeah,
$1
yeah,
million
yeah.
isn't cool. You know what's cool? $1 billion home gym.
Um,
The YouTube video that breaks the internet, the $1 billion home gym. It's 17 million square feet.
$1 million gym isn't cool, David. You know what's cool? $1 billion gym.
$1 billion gym. Jujimufu, that's your $1 billion gym. $1 billion. Mr. Beast, Jujimufu, $1 billion gym. No.
Figure it out, boys.
But look, this is a really interesting tour. I think this is really cool. I think he talks about opening it up. And like, if he opens it up to the public, here's the question. Does he then build a different home gym? You know, I mean, this is just what I'm thinking. Again, is Jujimufu playing 4D chess? I don't know. But it's a crazy cool looking facility. Crazy cool looking. I really look, we can't even go into it here. Cooper did a great job over at Garage Gym Reviews, and the team over at Garage Gym Reviews I'm biased. I love those guys. They did a great job diving into not only what this was and how impressive it was, but like why John Jujimufu, aka John Call, made the choices he did. Like why he went with certain pieces of equipment. It wasn't just all the same company, right? He didn't just get one company to outfit everything. He picked and he chose, and he was very specific and very thoughtful about it. This guy is more than just these viral videos and being like 230 pounds of ripped muscle and doing, backflips and splits and stuff like that, right? There's a lot to it. And I think if you are looking at like someone who's at this high level and who has these resources, what is their for me, the most interesting thing wasn't even the gym, it was the thought process behind the gym. Does that make sense?
Totally.
It's like a look into the mind.
Yeah. And also to see like the layout as well, like where he decided to place all of the equipment. You see the blueprint. Like anybody who hasn't seen that, go check out that video. You can see the blueprint of like the blueprint in his mind coming to life. It's very cool.
All right, let's move on a little bit. Hunter Henderson, who an accomplished professional bodybuilder, an accomplished all-time world record holding powerlifter, recently competed at 82.5 kilograms. Went 5 for 9 on the day, and certainly did not have the day she hoped, or did not have the competition she hoped at the WRPF Ghost Clash 3, but still came away with an all-time squat world record. Phil, mind taking us through the kind of the tail of the tape, her lifts at 82.5 kilogram body weight?
Yeah, absolutely. So she went 2 for 3 in the squat. She hit a 297.5 kilo squat to open, and then she hit a world record 311 kilogram squat. Now that's 6 kilos over the world record that she previously held, so she eclipsed her own world record. In the bench press, she also went 2 for 5, scoring 155 and then 165, missing 170 on her final attempt. And then in the deadlift, she only got on the board with her first attempt at 240 kilos for a total of 716 kilograms.
It's worth noting Hunter attempted a 320.5 pound squat here, right? And that would have been the all-time heaviest squat, non-equipped, for a woman. It would have been it. Only April Mathis and Australia's Sarah Rainbow have squatted heavier than Hunter Henderson's 311 kilograms. I love seeing Hunter Henderson go for the all-time world record here for women.
Particularly doing so several weight classes below super heavyweight.
Absolutely phenomenal. Far and away, I mean, she eclipsed the all-time world record for her bodyweight category by 6 kilos, right? That's a heck of a performance. We see in powerlifting records moved by 1 or 2 kilos at a time.
You
To set
see
an
records
all-time world
chipped.
record
Yeah.
by 6 kilos is outstanding. And honestly, like the courage to go and the mentality to go for an all-time world record squat when you're not even close to a super heavyweight. Wow. So Hunter Henderson wins her bodyweight category, actually does not come away with the best lifter award. Germany's Denise Herber had a fantastic performance, especially in the deadlift. 291.5 kilogram deadlift at 75 kilograms body weight to take just at the very end, snipe that best lifter award from Hunter Henderson. Henderson still had a fantastic day. And Phil, sorry, quick reactions. I don't want to steal your thunder because there's a very important announcement at the end of this segment.
There was so much to cover in the last 2 weeks on Strength Weekly that the fact that like Herber should definitely have like is worthy of her own segment if we had more time, for sure. Yeah. She had an exceptional day. Like her deadlift is something that you can like rewatch again and again, and like the grit to get through the grind that to get to that lockout, phenomenal. But yes, Hunter Henderson, you and your coach don't call for an all-time world record weight on the bar if there isn't the confidence that you can hit it. So even though it was missed, the fact that they believed that they could do it several weight classes below is a nod to like, oh, this is in her range. So like that's where it's like going into future competitions next time she competes, which, you know, we'll see when that is. We're about to talk about what her future looks like. But when she does step on the platform, if she's training like she did for this competition and thinks that she can hit it, like that's a story unto itself.
It's big news. It's a big story. One reason we are talking about Hunter Henderson, and we might be biased a little bit toward her here, is because she's a multi-sport strength athlete. She is a pro bodybuilder and has confirmed to BarBend that for the foreseeable future, she's actually going to be focusing on bodybuilding and hoping to qualify for the 2024 Olympia. She will attempt to do that at the Chicago Pro, which is in July. So a fairly quick turnaround. We're talking about basically 3-ish months, 3 or 4 months here to turn around, try and qualify at the Chicago Pro in July for the Olympia later this year. Hunter is one of those rare athletes that can succeed at the highest level.
Totally a unicorn.
Multiple strength sports. You know, we've seen that, like a few come to mind. It used to be more common. You know, back in the day, you had in the 50s and 60s, you had Tommy Kono, who's Mr. Universe bodybuilding and also an Olympic weightlifting champion, literally an Olympic champion in weightlifting, right? Like, as strength sports have gotten more specialized and as the bar has gotten raised higher, it's tougher and more difficult to succeed across strength sports. We've seen a few athletes do this. Tia Claire Toomey comes to mind, obviously. CrossFit GOAT, Olympic level weightlifter, right? We've seen that happen. We've seen some athletes make career transitions, succeed in like powerlifting, and then move over to bodybuilding and qualify as pros. Amanda Kohatsu comes to mind as someone who was a very, very accomplished powerlifter, switched over to bodybuilding, had quite a bit of success. Maddie Forberg, someone who had quite a bit of success in powerlifting, switched over to bodybuilding as a wellness competitor and did quite well, right? We've seen athletes make these transitions between the strength and aesthetic sports, especially on the women's side, but not exclusively. But Hunter Henderson has gone back and forth and alternated. She hasn't, oftentimes we see athletes switch over to bodybuilding and that's what they stay with. Hunter has gone back and forth and has made a conscious effort to go back and forth and succeed across seasons in both, which is really impressive. So she is basically a unicorn in that regard, in that there's really no one else doing that these days at the high level. So congrats to Hunter for a gutsy performance. Looking forward to seeing her potentially qualify for the Olympia later this year. Phil, that we've gone through a lot, and our World's Strongest Man preview is next week. Can you believe that?
Yeah, we are getting close to see who is going to. We got to hold off until we see who the other athletes they're going to allow to compete. Who's going to take those last 6 slots that are still open for the qualifying stage? But when we have those, now we got the events. We're getting close to showtime, and it's gonna be hot. Not just the temperature, but the competition.
Hot. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, I'm David Thomas Tao, joined by Phil Bleckman, bringing you all the news you need to know from around the barbell game.